Have you ever had that feeling, you've written an email, a report, whatever, you read it back and something just feels a little bit off. It doesn't quite flow right. Maybe the sentences feel kind of clunky or rushed, or maybe they just seem, incomplete.
Well, that feeling? It often comes down to the actual architecture of your sentences. So today, we're going to become sentence architects. We're going to dig into the 3 most common structural flaws. We're talking run-ons, comma splices, and fragments, and we're going to learn how to build stronger, clearer, and way more professional writing.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the basic blueprint for any good sentence. Then, we'll learn to spot 2 major structural problems, what I call unfinished structures and building collisions. And, to wrap it all up, we'll open up the architectural toolkit, which will give you everything you need to fix these issues with confidence.
Okay, let's dive right into our first section, the blueprint. Because, before we can spot what's wrong, we've got to understand what the foundation of a correct sentence even looks like. And that absolute fundamental piece is the clause. Just think of it as the essential brick of writing. A clause is just a group of words that has 2 key things: a subject, that's who or what is doing the action, and a verb, the action itself. Simple, right? But not all clauses are created equal. And this is where it gets really important. On one side, you have independent clauses. Think, Sally went fishing today. It's a complete thought. It can stand all by itself, like a sturdy, finished little house. But then you have dependent clauses, like, although Sally went fishing today. See how that just leaves you hanging? It's got a subject, it's got a verb, but it just can't stand alone. It depends on another clause to make sense.
And that right there brings us directly to our first major flaw: unfinished structures. This is what happens when a piece is missing, or when one of those dependent clauses gets left all by itself. We call these sentence fragments. A fragment is kind of like a room with no door, or a wall with no roof. Just look at these examples here. The man with the yellow hat. Okay, and what about him? It's missing the action, the verb, or running up and down the hill. Who is? We're missing the subject. And the other type is that lonely dependent clause we just talked about. While we were at the store, it feels like the start of a story, not the whole thing.
Now, the good news is fixing these unfinished structures is actually incredibly simple. You just have to complete the construction. For a phrase that's missing a part, you just add it in. The man with the yellow hat likes grapes. Boom, done. For a dependent clause, you just connect it to an independent one. While we were at the store, we saw Bill. See? A fragment just needs a little support to become part of a strong, complete sentence.
All right, on to our second big flaw: building collisions. This is what happens when 2 perfectly complete sentences get smashed together without the right kind of connection.
So, the most obvious collision is the classic run-on sentence. It's literally 2 complete thoughts just shoved together with nothing in between. We forgot the bread, we had to go back for it. When you read that out loud, you can feel how rushed it is, right? There's no pause, no separation. It's just a crash of 2 different ideas.
And now let's talk about its sneaky cousin, the comma splice. A lot of people think this is correct, but it's really just another type of run-on. It's when you try to stick 2 full sentences together with only a comma. We forgot the bread, we had to go back for it. A comma just isn't strong enough for that job. It's like trying to connect 2 buildings with a piece of string. It's just not going to work. So here's the bottom line. The thing you have to remember: whether you use no punctuation at all or just a comma, if you're trying to join 2 complete sentences incorrectly, it's a run-on. Period. It's a structural collision, and it makes your writing confusing.
But hey, just like with fragments, this isn't a disaster. There are some really elegant architectural solutions. You don't have to tear the buildings down, you just have to connect them the right way. And as you can see here, there are a few different ways to fix that collision, and each one creates a slightly different feel.
And that brings us to my favorite part: your architectural toolkit. This is where we stop just fixing errors and start making really intentional choices as a writer.
Okay, so here are the 4 main tools you have in your belt to fix a run-on.
Number 1, the period. Simple, clean. It gives you 2 separate sentences. 2, a comma plus a conjunction. Words like and, but, or so. This gives you a clear, straightforward connection. 3, the semicolon. Now this is a more sophisticated tool you use when the 2 sentences are super closely related. And 4, turn one of the sentences into a dependent clause, which shows a more complex relationship between the 2 ideas. And this right here, this table, is the ultimate takeaway. Each tool doesn't just fix the problem, it actively builds a specific type of sentence. Using a period, you get two simple sentences. Use a comma and a conjunction or a semicolon, now you've built a compound sentence, linking two equal ideas. And if you use that subordinating conjunction, you create a complex sentence, showing that one idea depends on the other. You have the power to choose what you want to build.
So please remember, mastering sentence structure isn't about memorizing a long list of rules just to avoid getting things wrong. It's about understanding the blueprint so you can build with purpose. You're moving from being a basic builder to a true architect, creating sentences that aren't just correct, but are clear, dynamic, and genuinely powerful.
By understanding these foundations, you can now look at your own writing, not with frustration, but with the confidence of a skilled craftsman. So, the only question left is, are you ready to build your next sentence?